Here you see a brass ball being heated over a butane torch. The ball started out at room temperature, and I'm going to see if I can get that ball really hot and then put it down into that bowl of water. See, it's about 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Give it a few more minutes. I want to get that ball good and hot, and then we're going to plunge it into the water and see if it transfers heat from the ball to the water. You saw and heard evidence that the ball rapidly transferred heat into that water. So the ball is clearly cooler. It's less than 100 degrees. What do you think happened to the water? Has that changed also? We're going to try to measure this heat transfer effect using steel bolts. You can see here that one steel bolt is 24.3 grams. 2 bolts is twice as much, 48.6 grams. What happens if we heat the bolts and then put them into a liquid? Can we measure the heat transfer? You can see we're going to use 2 liquids. In part 1 of the experiment, we'll use water, which is about room temperature. And in part 2, we're going to use cooking oil, which is also about room temperature. We need some hot bolts, so let's start cooking some bolts. In this experiment, one of our control variables is the amount of liquid we use. So I'm going to carefully measure out exactly 50 grams of water in 2 different cups. Looks like the bolts are coming along fine. Very close to the boiling point of water. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit and in Celsius 100 degrees. So here's our setup for part 1 of the experiment. We're going to use water. The cup on the left will get 2 bolts. The one on the right will get 4. Water temperature starting at 22 degrees Celsius, which is room temperature. Two bolts go in the first cup, and we'll give it 1 minute and see how much the water temperature changes. and 2 bolts raised the water temperature to 24 degrees Celsius. Now we'll try 4 bolts. Again, the starting temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. And we'll give those 1 minute and see how much heat transfer takes place. And the ending temperature is 33 degrees Celsius. For part 2 of the bolts experiment, we're going to repeat the same procedure we did in part 1, but this time using cooking oil. So first we have to measure out 50 grams of cooking oil in 2 different cups. If you've ever seen a mixture of oil and water, you know that oil floats on top of water when they're mixed together. And that tells us that oil is slightly less dense than water. So when we put in 50 grams of cooking oil, it actually takes up a little bit more space in the cup than 50 grams of water. Now for the hot bolts. Again, our starting temperature is 22 degrees in both cups. We'll start with 2 bolts in the left-hand cup. And after 1 minute, the temperature of the oil is now 32 degrees Celsius. And in the final cup, we're going to put 4 bolts. And after 1 minute, the temperature is 41 degrees Celsius.